Chapter 8: Historical Development of Philippine Art. For today's topics, we'll be discussing the following: progress of Philippine arts, the art and culture of the Philippines, pre-Hispanic period, Hispanic period, American period, Philippine contemporary arts, future of the Philippine arts, Philippine High School for the Arts.
The art and culture of the Philippines. Traditional Filipino art has a great life-improving function because its aesthetic forms speak not only for itself but also for many other levels of importance. Traditional Filipino and Asian art is multi-valued and multifunctional as compared with modern Western art that tends to be monofunctional. It has no other value other than the aesthetic, or having no other function but to provide pleasure and entertainment. This is the reason for the wider social appeal of Asian art in general. We Filipinos can't deny that arts now and then has a big impact for us. Now with art is the expression of the people, and they have a sense of beauty on it. For example, music. We all know that among of our indigenous people does not only possess aesthetic meaning, it can be for stimulating physical discipline, tool for healing, daan para sa panlipunang pakikipag-ugnayan, way on how we express our emotion or experience, way of affirming some values and belief, and isang anyo ng intelektual na ehersisyo at libangan. Art and culture of the Philippines wants to convey a concise message of capturing the essence of who we are as a people, the greatest diversity and intensity of Filipino spirit of invention. Pre-Hispanic period. Bago pa dumating ang mga Kastila, ang mga sinaunang Pilipino ay pinagmamalaki na ang ating lahi, na we are civilized people with own set of culture. And through art forms, Filipinos use it to express themselves and putting their knowledge and beliefs na kadalasang nakabase sa nature and varied among the different tribes. So here is some Filipinos art in pre-Hispanic period. Butuan boat, or also known as balangay, balanghay. This boat is rugged boat with pegged planks. In 1978, this boat was discovered at Butuan, Agusan del Norte. This boat can accommodate 25 people and was constructed in long-distance endurance voyage. There are 9 prehistoric boats exist right now. The first boat to arrive was discovered in the year 320 AD. It is also on display at the Site Museum in Butuan, Libertad. The Balangay is a locality in the Philippines. At maritime, Asian Filipinos bought goods from foreign traders and sold. Both used to redistribute the commodities to remote communities in the archipelago. In today's boat, Cebuto Islands creators in the Philippine southernmost region is still use the same technology. The plank vessels could be hundreds of years old. European explorers utilized it when they first appeared in the 16th century, later discovered the archipelago. The name comes from Spanish ruler Las Islas Filipinas. Bulol, or Ifugao rice god. This one is a carved human statue that created by Ifugao people na kung saan dito nila pinadadaan ang kanilang mga kahilingan. For them, the spirit of their ancestor ay nandoon sa bulol. They have high respect for bulols as a spiritual guide in their lives sa larangan ng pagtatanim. It means that yung mga hagdang palayan ang nagpapakita ng kultura ng mga Ifugao ay sumasalamin din sa kanilang mga paniniwala, especially in creating bulols. It is also called anitos sa dati nilang paniniwala. The beliefs of Ifugao people was the reason why they entrust to bulols to guide and increasing rice yields and harvest. Ling-ling-o. Is used as either an earrings or necklace pendant by the Igorots living in the northern part of the Philippines. Most of ling-ling-o were made in jade, that well known for its ornamental use in East Asian, South Asian, and Southeast Asian art. They said that the double-headed pendant ay natuklasan sa Duyong Cave in Palawan at ito ay isa sa pinakamagandang jade ornaments na nahanap sa Pilipinas. That's why this one is good example of craftsmanship of Asian carving in jade. However, ear pendants were made not only from jade but also from shells, clays, and stone. So the use of different types of material for personal ornaments ay nagpapakita ng pagkakaiba sa katayuan sa lipunan. Up until now, the use of ling-ling-o form made of gold or brass pendants and earrings still lives among the Ifugao and the Igorot in northern Philippines. Arnis. All of us are familiar with this because arnis is lauded as the national sport and fighting style of the Philippines up until now. Arnis or kali and eskrima are the unique traditional fighting technique of the Asian warriors of the Philippines. Fighting can be done in a variety of ways na walang paggamit ng mga armas, knives, sticks at kung ano paman sa pagharap sa kalaban. The battle between Lapu-Lapu and Magellan by using only a bladed weapon ang siyang naging dahilan. When Spaniard come back here in the Philippines, pinagbawal nila ang pag-arnis, kali at eskrima nung mga panahon na yon. Ngunit nagpatuloy ito at napanatili through the native ritual dance or it was called sayaw ni kamatayan or the dance of death. This art was passed in generation to generation nang hindi nalalaman ng pamahalaang kolonyal ng Espanyol. Prehistoric pottery. Archaeological stated that noong panahon ng Neolitiko, na ang paraan ng pamumuhay ng tao sa ating bansa ay malaki ang pagbabago mula pa sa mga naunang panahon. Evidence from archaeological sites now have started displaying polished stone instruments that are largely blade, like stone, shells, and wood adzes. During this time, it is not just only all about the development of metals. Instead, it is also for the development of metals as the golden age of pottery. Pottery from the Metal Age was distinguished by wonderful and intricate patterns and design revealing complex societies. Well-known highlights here, Metal Age jars are usually used for burials, which shows the custom of burial done by the people from the time period. Prehistoric weaving. Before the arrival of the first Spaniard, Filipinos had already produced a variety of designs of fabric na galing sa mga natural fibers like using abaca fibers, pineapple, cottons, and bark cloth. Textiles such as clothes, rugs, and hat were weaved, and etc. Ancient Filipinos before the Spaniard, they are already civilized. Not all naked, and they are wear clothes. The clothes they wore in this era are based on their culture and tradition. In today's era, the National Museum of the Philippines highlights and showcases the significance of preserving the art of weaving as an integral part of our culture. In 2004, Republic Act 9242, often known as the Tropical Fabrics from the Philippines, Senator Loren wrote the law. Lagarda made it mandatory to use native fibers for official use to government uniforms and staffs, with a deadline in mind in order to enhance the local economy industry of fiber. Batek or batok. This one is a famous indigenous tattooing on the Kalinga people in the Cordilleras na hanggang ngayon ay ginagawa pa rin nila. Wang Od is regarded as the final mambabatok tattoo artist in the country. For ages, tattooing has been an art form before the Spaniard arrived as well as the arrival of Christianity. In 1521, bago ang pagdating ng mga Kastila sa Kabisayaan, Spaniard called this native region as Pintados, na ang ibig sabihin ay painted people or painted ones. Dahil most of their entire bodies ay nababalutan ng tattoo maliban sa kanilang kamay at paa. Just like in Visayas, in Luzon, tattooing is also practiced here. This is well known for our several tattoos and rituals. Naniniwala sila sa mga tattoo hid spiritual powers and magical qualities na maaaring magbigay sa kanila ng lakas at proteksyon. This tattoo also serve as reward in warriors after a successful headhunt expedition and to mark the people's social status within their community. Kampilan. This word was from Maranao. It is a single-edged bicuspid weapon that with a complex design handle made of ivory and brass. Ang espadang ito ay ginagamit ng mga Maranao para sa pagpuputol ng ulo at upang hatiin ang katawan mula sa itaas hanggang sa ibaba ng daliri ng paa. In today's era, the kampilan is a symbol of power, wealth, and status of datu and sultan, and made purely as commercial product. Kubing. This one is indigenous musical instrument that made from a hand-carved piece of bamboo. The design of it depends on the tribe's culture. Kubing produce an exceptional and distinct sounds. May iba't ibang tawag dito sa iba't ibang lugar. Just like in Cotabato, it is called kulaing. Subing in the Visayas, Barmbao among the Tagalogs, Kolibao among the Negritos, and of course, Kubing in Maguindanao and Maranao. Kubing is widely used by various tribes, especially in their festivities. It is evident that many of the urban residents, particularly the youth, are unfamiliar with this instrument.
Hispanic period. Many things changed upon the coming of the colonizers. The culture and traditions of the ancient Filipinos were modified to suit the taste and teachings of the Christian invaders. The bahay na bato. This was the type of house developed during the Philippines Spanish colonial period. It was an upgraded version of the conventional bahay kubo. Its design and construction still retain the bahay kubo's architectural basis because of the tropical climate, stormy season, and earthquake-prone environment of the Philippines.
The bahay na bato could be described as a house with wooden legs and stone skirt. Its wooden frame had both flexibility and stability, and one-story high stone was less likely to collapse. Its large wooden posts were sunk into the ground, standing high enough to support the roof. The posts were made of precious hardwood and were worth displaying. The living quarters were elevated and reached by way of an interior stairway located in the sagwan on the ground floor. The sagwan is on the entrance hall with an abundant space that was also a perfect storeroom for just about everything.
Baroque churches. The UNESCO World Heritage List in 1993 included the 4 Spanish colonial period churches in the Philippines. All 4 churches are designed and known to be the Baroque style. As part of the country's material inheritance from Spain, all of the said 4 churches are now classified as national treasures of the country. The Baroque churches of the Philippines were the 4 Roman Catholic churches made between the 16th and the 18th centuries in the Spanish period of the Philippines.
The Philippine Baroque churches are made up of 4 churches built during Spanish colonial era in the late 16th century. The Manila Church of San Agustin Paway, Ilocos Norte, San Agustin Church, Santo Tomas de Villanueva Church in Iloilo, and Nuestra Señora de la Asunción Church in Santa Maria, Ilocos Sur. The 4 churches are outstanding examples of the Philippine interpretation of the Baroque style, combining European church design and construction with locally sourced materials and indigenous decorative motifs to create a new church building traditions.
Painting during the Spanish period. Western painting was introduced by the Spanish friars in the Philippines to artisans who learned to copy on 2-dimensional form the religious icons that the friars brought from Spain. In the first centuries of Spanish colonization, painting was only for the creation of religious icons.
Saints and Holy Families portraits became commonplace in churches. Religious themes such as Passion of the Christ, the Via Crucis, the Crucifixion, and depiction of heaven, purgatory, and the persisted. Painting was only used in churches and for religious purposes during the early stage of Spanish colonization. It was occasionally used for propaganda, such as Esteban Villanueva's painting of the crushing of the Ilocos Revolt in 1821, created in Bigan, Ilocos Sur.
Sculpture. Christian-themed art in the Philippines was common during the 17th to 19th centuries when parts of the country were under the Spanish colonial rule. Many of these religious images were of carved wooden santos or saints created by unknown artists, as well as reliefs and paintings of the Virgin Mary and Jesus Christ.
When the Spaniards arrived, the Spanish friars introduced new art forms but the natives embraced sculpture right away. The creation of Anito was converted into sculpture of the saints. The santos were utilized for the church altars and retablos. The santos replaced the anitos in the altars of the natives' homes. The tabernacle and the image of the town's patron saints were housed in the retablo or cabinet of saints. The most ornate retablos could be seen in San Agustin Church, Intramuros.
Graphic arts. Spanish colonizers introduced engraving in the 1990s. The religious orders owned printing presses and printed mostly prayer books and estampas. In the 18th century, copper etching became more popular.
Estampas featured saint portraits and well-known religious image. Friars frequently distributed estampas and their smaller version, estampitas, to the natives during town fiestas. In the 18th century, innovation advanced and copper etching was introduced and quickly became popular.
Philippine dance in the Spanish period. For the past 300 years, Spain shaped the lives of Filipinos in terms of politics, economics, religion, and culture. The Hispanization infiltrated even the musical and choreographic practices of the people.
Native dances, such as the well-known tinikling and itik-itik, adapted the tempo and temperament of European forms, such as the jota and polka. The most well-known was the jota, which later evolved into numerous regional variants. Another Spanish dance that was styled as fandango was fandango. In this way, Spanish dances flourished and remained popular for all social occasions.
Fiesta. Fiesta, the Spanish word for party or festivity, turned pista in the local dialect. It is an acknowledged national traditional occasion. It is a momentous occasion when communities come together in gratitude for another passing year.
In the minds of Filipinos, the word fiesta conjures up images of maglets, also known as banderitas, carrozas or processional arts, marching bands, and a lot of food. Fiestas are so deeply ingrained in Filipino culture that they have become a favorite subject for local painters.
American period. The coming of the Americans brought in new art forms and different kind of outlook in life. The Americans educated the Filipinos and thus influenced their way of thinking and creativity. Architecture during the American period. The coming of the Americans in 1898 to the islands was the start of the invasion. Upon the arrival of the Americans came a new type of architectural structures. An outstanding American contribution to the country was the creation of a civil government. This directed the construction of government buildings from the city to the municipal level. These government buildings were designed to look like Greek or Roman temples, complete with porches and pediments. The varied style, a mix of historic styles, found its way into some of the commercial buildings rising in the business district, such as the Regina Building along historic Escolta. The rise of the Art Nouveau also resulted in some examples in central business district like Uichaco Building along Calle Rosario and Plaza Cervantes, as well as in the majestic homes of the elite or the Casa de Ariston Bautista in Calle Barbosa, Quiapo. Painting during the American period. In the founding of public schools, the demand for illustrations and cartoons for books and publications increased. Because of the flood of new corporations, advertising and commercial designs were in demand and were included in the curriculum of fine arts schools. With the arrival of the new colonial power came a change in art patronage. The new art patrons, like the tourists and the foreign investors, favored landscapes, still life, and genre themes that depicted the beauty of the land and its people. Portraits were still favored by the public officials, usually depicting them in dignified poses. Therefrom, the American colonization brought high influence to the major art forms like paintings, sculptures, and architectures. Fabian de la Rosa. Don Fabian de la Rosa y Cueto was born on May 5, 1869 and died on December 14, 1937. Fabian de la Rosa was a Filipino painter. He was the uncle and mentor to the Philippines' national artist in painting, Fernando Amorsolo, and to his brother Pablo. He is regarded as a master of genre in Philippine art. Fabian de la Rosa was the first well-known Filipino artist of the 20th century. He was well known for his realistic portraits, genre scenes, and landscape in muted colors. He was enrolled at the Escuela de Bellas Artes y Dibujo and took lessons from Lorenzo Guerrero. De la Rosa is often considered the brightest name in Filipino painting and certainly the most important for the first quarter of the century. Fernando Amorsolo. Fernando Cueto Amorsolo was born on May 30, 1892 and died on April 24, 1972. Amorsolo was a portraitist and painter of rural Philippine landscapes. He is De la Rosa's nephew who captured the public's and buyers' attention. His paintings, drenched in yellow, orange, and golden sunlight, depicted the Philippine landscape in all its glory. Amorsolo also depicted the illustrious rural life of working men and women. If De la Rosa's work were of subdued, cool colors, then Amorsolo's landscape are bathed in the glorious Philippine sunlight. He is the first and among the few Filipino painters who have captured the different striking colors and character of the country's magnificent sunlight. Sculpture during the American period. Guillermo Tolentino dominated Philippine sculpture for the first decades of the 20th century. He was trained in the classical style in Rome. Tolentino's famous masterpieces include the Oblation at the University of the Philippines and the Bonifacio Monument in Caloocan. The Bonifacio Monument, designed by Guillermo Tolentino, is classical in execution but romantic in content. Tolentino portrayed Andres Bonifacio as a man who stood firm amidst the turmoil of the revolution. The symbol of the country's top state university, the Oblation, represents the classical ideals of discipline, order, symmetry, and restraint. It stands naked, firm, and proud, arms open to receive knowledge and change.
Philippine Contemporary Arts. Contemporary Philippine arts from the region is an art produced at the present period in time. In vernacular English, modern and contemporary are synonyms, resulting in some conflation of the terms modern art and contemporary art by non-specialists. Contemporary art refers to art made and produced by artists living today. Today's artists work in and respond to a global environment that is culturally diverse, technologically advancing, and multifaceted. Relief sculpture. Low relief and high relief sculpture. Low relief or bas relief sculpture does not stand out as much and may feature parts that are intended into the flat surface. High relief sculpture stand out from the flat surface, sometimes to a great degree. Relief, also called rilievo, from Italian relievare. It means to raise. In sculpture, any work in which the figures project from a supporting background, usually a plane surface. Types of sculpture in the contemporary setting. Use of glass. Contemporary glass is a type of fine art sculpture where the medium of expression used by the artist is glass. Examples are from Ramon Orlina and Imelda Pilapil's works. Orlina used glass in table pieces, murals, and sculptures, which were usually unified into a framework. Pilapil used glass planes with irregular shapes and linear patterns. Symbolic sculpture. Symbolic sculpture means an abstract idea is represented by means of allegory and personification. Kapag sinabing allegory, ito ay isang kwento kung saan ang mga tauhan, tagpuan at kilos ay napapagkahulugan ng higit pa sa literal nitong kahulugan o may simbolong sinasagisag. Kapag sinabing personifikasyon o pagsasatao, ginagamit ito upang bigyang buhay ang mga walang buhay gamit ang katangiang pangtao. Visual arts. These are the arts that meet the eye and evoke an emotion through an expression of skill and imagination. These are the visual art forms. Advertising art. It refers to using paid space or time in any of the media to inform and influence the public. Ginagamit ang advertising art noon para maengganyo ang mga tao na tangkilikin o suportahan ang produkto o serbisyo sa pamamagitan ng makukulay na larawan o nakakatuwang impormasyon o pahayag. Bamboo art. It refers to works made out of bamboo that may be used for everyday purposes or for decoration or ornaments. Nagamit ang makapal na kawayan sa paggawa ng bahay kubo, dekorasyon, kasangkapan, lalagyan at iba pa. Iyon ang maninipis naman daw na kawayan ay ginagawang instrumento o kaya kwintas o bracelet.
Basketry. This refers to the art of creating containers by weaving, plaiting, or braiding materials into hollow, three-dimensional shapes that can be used for carrying, storage, and trapping animals. Ito ay yari sa matigas na materyales at ginagamit sa pamamalengke. Gayunpaman, hindi ito laging sisidlan at hindi laging yari sa mga nilapat na kawayan, mga hinimay na bule at pandan, at mga biniyak na yantok at paging. Ginagamit ng mga Pilipino ang basket para sa transportasyon at trabaho sa bukid, serbisyo at pag-iimbak ng pagkain, pangingisda at pagbibitag, damit at para magdala ng mga personal na gamit.
Costumes. These are garments, hairstyles, and accessories that are worn by individual members of group in a particular society.
Ang costume ay nakadepende sa lugar o okasyon. May iba't ibang estilo ng costume para sa iba't ibang kapistahan. May costume din para sa pagsasayaw ng iba't ibang katutubong sayaw at costume para sa iba pang kaganapan gaya ng mga patimpalak.
Embroidery. This refers to the art of stitching ornaments on cloth by hand.
Ang pagbuborda ay maaari magdagdag ng kulay, texture, at dimensyon.
Food art. It involves packaging and or representation of food in an artistic way. Maganda din sa pagkain na hindi lang masarap kung hindi maganda din ito. Maganda din itong tingnan kapag inhain sa tao. Ang nasa picture ay picture ng sapin-sapin. Furniture. These are decorative and functional that are typically in a public or private dwelling or building. These are also known as muebles or kasangkapan.
Ang muebles ay binubuo ng malalaking bagay tulad ng mga mesa, upuan, o kama na ginagamit sa isang silid para sa pag-upo o paghiga. Bawat piraso ng kasangkapan sa kanilang tahanan ay angkop sa estilo ng bahay.
Editorial cartoon. It is a single-frame illustration that may either make fun of political leaders and institutions or comment on current events. Comics. It may use single or multiple frames with conservations of people or animals placed inside balloons. Leaf art. It is used in religious rituals, food wrapping, and modern artistic expressions.
Ang puni o pagtitiklop ng dahon ng palma ay nilayon upang lumikha ng mga mahuhusay na laruan para sa mga bata. Gayunpaman, maaari ding gamitin ang puni upang lumikha ng mga pinagtagpi na basket at bag. Ang pinakakaraniwang permutasyon ng puni art ay ang mga palaspas na nakikita natin tuwing Semana Santa.
Mat weaving. It refers to the art of plaiting strip of organic fibers into mats. Sa mat weaving, isang halimbawa nito ang banig na pwede natin gawing higaan o lalagyan ng ating pagkain sa picnic sa bukid. Metal craft. It is all about objects made from metal using the processes of brass casting and blacksmithing, tinsmithing or goldsmithing, and silversmithing. Ang mga halimbawa ng metal craft ay anting-anting, kagamitan, lalagyan o aromas na gawa sa tanso o ginto. Noong panahon pa ng ating mga ninuno, ang nagiging batayan ng pagiging makapangyarihan is through tattoo or jewelries. Mas marami, mas kagalang-galang ka noon. Multimedia. Examples of multimedia are conceptual art, installation art, and performance art. Conceptual art. In this type of multimedia, a visual artist's ideas or sets up a situation, placing philosophical value in the process itself, while negating the importance of craftsmanship and arriving at a finished art object. Multimedia. Installation art. In this type of multimedia, the artist puts together materials and objects in an exhibition space to cast a new experience or idea. Performance art. In this type of multimedia, an artist converts himself or herself into an art object in motion and sound.
Printmaking. This refers to transferring images from a firm surface such as metal or wood to a pliable surface such as cloth or paper using pressure. This is different from reproduction because printmaking involves making the plates either by hand or mixed with mechanical means. On the other hand, reproduction involves making the plate and printing using only mechanical means. Tattoo art. This is known as the process of permanently decorating one's skin with images by way of a sharp object and a coloring dye. A tattoo is worn for several reasons. It may serve as simply a type of clothing or an enhancement of the physical beauty of the wearer. It may also be worn to drive away evil spirits and enemies or to express particular social values and attributes. Textile weaving. This is the art of making cloth by interweaving a sequence of parallel upright threads with another sequence of horizontal threads at right angles. Textiles may be plain or decorated by dyes, embroidery, and applique. Some examples of textiles in the Philippines are Abel Iloco from Ilocos region, Tinalak for Cotabato, and Yakan tribe tapestry from Basilan. Future of the Philippine arts. The following are young creative people, festivals, events, and places leading in Philippine art preservation, promotion, recognition, and continuation. These avenues present just about a short glimpse of our future in the arts.
Paper art. It is the process of making things out of paper by way of cutting, recycling, and constructing objects.
Paper art used to be limited with folk paper art such as taka and higante from Angono, parol, pastillas wrappings, and kites. Paper art is an art using paper as the primary artistic medium for the creation of 2 or 3-dimensional objects. Personal ornaments. These are objects that are worn on the human body. Jewelry falls under this form. Jewelry made in the Philippines is typically described as symmetrical and exhibits formal proportion with a strong sense of rhythm.
Photography. It refers to the process of producing images using a light-sensitive chemical plate or film. Pottery. It is a general term for decorative and useful objects made from clay set up at high temperatures. These are 3 types of pottery: earthenware, stoneware, and porcelain. Earthenware or terracotta is a type of pottery is made of clay. Stoneware is a type of pottery is made of clay and feldspar. Porcelain. This type of pottery is made of kaolin, a special type of clay that is extra fine and white, and feldspar. Philippine High School for the Arts. National Arts Center. It was found in Los Baños, Laguna, was formed by former President Ferdinand Marcos on the 7th day of April in 1976 as a tribute to the Filipino artist. Played a significant role in the cultural upliftment of the nation through the molding of young talents. Animahenasyon. It is an animal animation festival and competition held in the Philippines that started in 2007 and organized by the Animation Council of the Philippines. Web comics or comics that are published online have been steadily increasing in the Philippines for the past 6 years. Webcomics artists have the liberty to experiment with visual through computer software. Comic-Con, the Tagalized form for comic and convention, is an early year comic book fan convention in the Philippines.